Welcome to Quirky French Podcast, the podcast that helps you speak more confidently, feel more focused, and be more in control of your French learning journey. Prêt? C'est parti! Salut! Welcome to Quirky French Podcast, the go-to podcast where I'm going to be teaching you my quirky methods to become fluent and to get over your fear of speaking. My name is still Naima, and this is episode 4. So in this episode, I'm going to be talking about goal setting, and we'll talk about why it's essential to set clear goals. I'm also going to challenge the common idea that your goal needs to be moderate, because actually you can have a very ambitious goal and that goal can still be realistic and sensible. I'll help you identify and articulate your goal clearly. And after that, I'll walk you through the workbook that you can download with today's episode so that you have a very clear idea of what to concentrate on once you've identified that goal of yours. Okay, on commence? Allez. Okay, so let's talk about why it's essential to have clear goals. A lot of learners really underestimate the importance and the power of having a clear goal. And if you're like me, perhaps you want to learn things as fast as possible because you really want to do well and you want to do well as early as possible. And if that's the case for you too, then having a clear goal is an absolute must. As I said previously, learning a language is really a process. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So if you want to learn fast and if you don't allow yourself to have a clear goal, you're basically heading straight to a language fail. You may precipitate and not focus on the right priorities. And when things get hard and when you've got setbacks, you're also more likely to give up. And also, in the beginning of the learning, it's really easy to feel excited and to want to learn. But once that honeymoon phase fades away, you really need to start to rely on your discipline to learn. And that's when goals come in really handy. Because when you're on that learning journey, working on that confidence, improving your French, practicing relentlessly, you'll find that all of those things are really challenging. And, you're going to have to learn to overcome failure and self-doubt. And, that can be challenging. That can be exhausting. So having a clear goal is really what's going to make the difference between, on one hand, giving up too early, feeling overwhelmed, focusing on irrelevant stuff and wasting energy, time and resources. And on the other hand, being focused on the end results, tracking your progress, understanding that all those challenges are part of that learning journey and really knowing that all of your efforts are bringing you closer and closer to your ultimate goal. So I really wanted to talk about goals early on in this podcast because if you don't have a clear goal, you may get lost, you may lose momentum, and ultimately you could lose your commitment altogether. Okay, so we've talked about the importance of having goals, and now I really want to talk about the idea of realistic goal, and I kind of want to challenge the idea that you can't have a very ambitious goal. So there's that common thought that if you don't have a realistic goal, it will kill your motivation. The thought basically is make sure that you've got a realistic goal as opposed to an ambitious goal. It's almost as if having an ambitious goal was the opposite and was not compatible with having a realistic goal. But that's not really the issue. As a matter of fact, you can have a very ambitious goal and it can be realistic. The problem is not the goal. The actual challenge here is what comes after the goal. Because if you don't know how to be clear with your goal, if you don't know how to carefully and strategically plan for it, then you're going to fail. But you're actually going to fail whether your goal is ambitious or not. And I really want to be clear on that. If you don't know how to plan for that goal, and if you don't follow through, you are going to fail. So having an ambitious goal is not the problem. The problem is what comes after that. Making a goal realistic has nothing to do with the goal itself. So aim big, aim for your dream, and just go for it. But the key question is, once you have that goal, how do you make it realistic? How do you plan for it? How do you follow through? Okay, so I really hope that you're with me on that one and that you understand that you can aim for whatever goal you have in mind and that you can aim really high. So now we're going to talk about the concrete steps to identify your goal and to make it as clear as possible and to really articulate your goal clearly. And you really want to do that because once you have a clear goal, you're also going to have a much better idea of the steps needed to reach that goal. And to do that, I really want you to take the time to think and to write down your goal, because when you write it down, you're also creating clarity for yourself and you're creating that commitment in your mind, in your brain. So the first step is you need to ask yourself, why do you want to learn French? Why are you learning it in the first place? What's the purpose of all this? So perhaps you're learning it because you want to be able to communicate with a loved one or family members. Perhaps it's for professional reasons. You may want to improve your French because it will increase your career opportunities. Perhaps you're looking to move to France. Perhaps you're just working towards an exam or a degree. So you need to be very clear on why. And you need to keep that reason at the back of your mind, and you need to think about it when you study French, because the reason you're studying is also going to shape your learning and is also going to determine what you're going to be studying. Now, the second step is to ask yourself what you want to be able to achieve by learning French. If you say something like, I want to be able to have a conversation, that's nice, that's understandable, but that's way too vague. You need to be really specific. Being able to have a conversation in French, that looks like so many different things. And so if you're not very clear, you could waste a lot of energy studying the wrong thing. So being able to have a conversation in French, for example, that could look like a goal for just a trip away for 1 week in France, or having a conversation could be, if you're relocating to France, you may want to have conversations in French, like being able to speak spontaneously with natives, being able to socialize and do more complex tasks like working in France. So you really need to be very specific, and to do that, think about the context in which you want to use that French. Really visualize and think about the context and in what ways, in what situations you want to use your French. That's going to help you be very specific. For example, if you're studying French for a specific job, you may need to learn some business French. So think about all of this. Take the time to think about the reason you're learning French, what you want to be able to achieve, really visualize, bring all of that context, and then you should have a very clear goal. And so instead of saying, I want to be able to have a conversation in French, you could say, I want to be able to travel away on holiday for a week in France and complete some basic tasks like going to the shop, taking public transportations, making bookings. That's starting to be very clear and specific. Okay, so you've got a very clear goal. Well done, because this is so important and it's essential. So you've already completed a really important step and you're now more likely to achieve that goal. Now, the question is, how do you get there? And your challenge is that you're going to have to break down that one goal into smaller steps. This is where the episode's workbook comes in handy. What you can do now is go on this episode's webpage, so quirkyfrench.com/podcast/4, and download this little workbook that I've designed for you. It's going to help you, first of all, define your goal clearly. And then I'm going to take you through a series of steps and activities that will help you turn this goal and transform it into really concrete and actionable steps. The first thing you're going to do is brainstorm a list of all the things you need to do to get there. And it's a really important and powerful step because it's going to help you anticipate, visualize, and plan everything that's involved to achieve that language goal. After the brainstorming is done, you'll also go through some questions to analyze and identify your obstacles, because goals naturally come with obstacles. So you're going to have a series of questions that will allow you to identify them and also develop strategies to overcome them. So that really means that you shouldn't be scared of obstacles, because there is a plan for it and there is a formula that you can apply to deal with obstacles. And after that, the final step will be all about scheduling everything that you will have listed so far in the workbook. So this workbook is going to take you from just having one general goal to a very concrete plan that will include your goal, your obstacles, your strategies, your lifestyle, and your routine. And at this stage, nothing will be able to stop you. Okay, so that's it for goals for today, for goal setting. If you follow the steps, you're going to be well on your way to achieving your goals. So remember, don't underestimate the importance and the power of goals. And be willing to aim for an ambitious one, because having an ambitious goal doesn't mean that it's unrealistic. And make sure that you're very clear on your reason for learning French. Make sure that you're very specific with that goal and that you can articulate it clearly. And finally, complete the workbook so you can transform that goal into concrete, actionable steps and start incorporating them in your routine. But in future episodes, I'm going to give you even more tools for creating an action plan. So watch this space for those too. And again, just head on to quirkyfrench.com/podcast/4. Okay, so that's the end of episode 4, goal setting. Again, thank you so much for the support and for the comments last week. And if you enjoy this podcast, you can rate and subscribe, but also, share it with other learners if you think that they could benefit from it. But yeah, I'm curious. What's your reason for learning French? And can you articulate your goal clearly and be really specific with it now? I'd love to find out, so let me know in the comments and I'll make sure to reply. I can't wait to connect with you again next week. But until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep it quirky. Allez, à très vite. Salut!